Movies, the final frontier. Their mission to bring entertainment and imagination to the world's population. This is the Evan Nova 95 YouTube channel. Its mission, to review these movies as well as entertain the subscripted audience, to boldly go where no reviewer has gone before. Captain's Log, Stardate, January 1st, 2013. What's up, guys? Happy New Year, it's 2013, and welcome to the second day of Star Trek week. Today we're going to be looking at my second favorite movie of all time and the undisputed greatest Star Trek movie of all time. Yes, I'm talking about Star Trek II, The Wrath of Kahn. Now this movie is undoubtedly my second favorite movie of all time. I've seen over like hundreds of movies through my life, but this one has just made one of the biggest impacts on me ever. And you may be wondering what my first favorite movie is, but we're going to be saving that for another time. So, introduction's over, let's get to the movie. Now, this movie is actually a follow-up to the episode Space Seed from the original series, wherein Captain Kirk and company find Kahn, a genetically altered super soldier from the 1940s, in cryo-freezing in a spaceship drifting in the middle of space. Now, what Kahn is he was originally designed to help his country win the war, but he grew too ambitious with his power because his genetic modifications make him significantly stronger than the average man. He is able to bend metal with his bare fists, punch through rock. He's a powerhouse. But his biggest strength by far is his superior intellect. Now, Kirk eventually defeats Kahn and eventually exiles him to Alpha 5, a planet in the distant far edges of the galaxy. Now, what this movie entails is Kahn's getting his revenge. Now, what happens is Kirk, now Admiral Kirk, starts training new cadets, one of which is played by Kirstie Alley, who is, interestingly enough, her very first movie appearance and her first on-screen appearance since Cheers, which I have not seen. But she's hot, and she plays a Vulcan, so what's to complain about, really? It is actually Kirk's birthday at the start of the movie, and the story of the movie with him is about him coping with getting older. Now, what I really like this movie is the dynamic between Kahn and Kirk, because those are some of the best scenes in the movie. And what's very interesting is part of the reason Kahn is my favorite villain of all time is his subtlety, but also how scary he can really be. There's a scene where he puts these earwigs into Scotty and some other guy. It's so intense. Like, I get chills every time I watch it. Now, basically what ends up happening is Kahn ends up escaping his exile with a ship and his crew and goes after Kirk for revenge. But he is also after this thing called the Genesis device. Now, what the Genesis device is it's a torpedo that creates life from nothing. So basically, you fire it at like a dead planet or a moon, it's alive again and prospering. And the reason Kahn wants it is if you fire it at a living planet, it will destroy all life. Throughout the movie, Kahn is quoting Moby Dick, one of the most famous books ever written. When Scotty first goes into his hut on the planet, there's actually a bookshelf with books like Moby Dick and King Lear. And you know what all those things have in common? They all have a villain trying to get revenge on someone else, and that ultimately getting in the way of their goal. And that is also foreshadowing to what this movie is, because even when Kahn has the Genesis device, he is too caught up in revenge to use it. His teammates are trying to get him to stop going after Kirk. His teammates are like, no, we have the Genesis device. We have what we need. And Kahn's like, no, I am getting revenge on this man for humiliating me. And that ultimately leads to his downfall, which shows that revenge is never truly the option. And that is one of the greatest impacts this movie has, because no matter how powerful you can be or how powerful you are or you think you have everything, if something can ultimately get in the way of how you think, it could cause you to crumble. And that is the true dynamic of this movie. And that is why Kahn is the greatest villain. And this is the greatest movie for rivals because it's played so well. Also, the big shock of this movie is Spock, I think everyone's favorite Vulcan, ends up dying. And that was a huge thing for the time because, everyone knew who Spock was, even if you weren't a Star Trek fan. And the way he dies is he ultimately saves the ship from exploding, but he has to sacrifice himself to do it, and it's a very, very gripping scene. When he's breathing his last breaths and telling Jim how much he cares for him. It's truly a gripping scene, and the funeral is handled very well. Other aspects of this movie show how the new generation must step in to take the reins of the old, but sometimes that doesn't always work because you have all these young cadets dying in the battle, but Kirk and Scotty, McCoy, they're all still alive, and you can see the anguish on their face as these people they've trained crumble before their old enemy, and that is truly a gripping scene right there, especially when Scotty is holding this cadet's body. It's just incredible. This movie is by far the greatest Star Trek movie because it has the greatest impact emotionally. Even the action is handled in a way which is operatic. The firing back at each other, the music, it's like watching a stage play in space, if that makes sense. Truly an impactful story which will remain famous for all time. Truly one of the greatest movies ever made. And I know I'm taking this more seriously than my usual reviews, but that is how much I truly care for this movie. And I highly recommend you see it. This is the Star Trek movie to see. If you want to see the greatest villain of all time, if you want to see one of the most touching funeral scenes of all time, if you want to just see one of the best reenactments of one of the most famous books of all time, check out Star Trek II: The Wrath of Khan, because it's just amazing. Alrighty, well, that concludes my review for this movie. I bet you guys didn't think I could be so serious, am I right? But stay tuned for tomorrow, where we delve into the return of Spock, Star Trek 3. Stay tuned.